If you're like me, you're probably aware of some controversy around the erector spinae plane block. Now, I do like ESP blocks, but it wasn't always that way. In fact, this was me one day in 2019. I'm done with ESPs. If you want to hear what happened that day, and what convinced me that this block is worth doing, stay tuned. As a refresher, here's a brief history of ESP blocks. First described back in 2016, those pioneers were looking for a safer, shallower, easier version of the legendary paravertebral block. They reasoned that if you brought a needle in and hit the dorsal side of the transverse process, you'd get local anesthetic spreading longitudinally up and down the back deep to the ES muscle, and the local would somehow work its way anterior to the process, aka into the paravertebral space. And in that way, you'd anesthetize not only the dorsal ramus of the nerve root, but also the ventral ramus, which would get you a complete block of that dermatome from midline of the back to midline of the front. And that's why some people called this block the paravertebral by proxy. It was a backdoor to the paravertebral space. It was a cool idea, and there were papers that described blocks of most of the hemithorax. Awesome. Now we could achieve paravertebral-like analgesia with no pneumothoraces. And in cases where epidurals were off the table because of anticoagulants, no problem. ESP to the rescue. So we started doing more and more of them, and the results were, well, not amazing. Some patients felt relief, but it was no paravertebral, especially when it came to sensory block of the skin. We would ask the patients afterwards, do you feel this? Do you feel this? Do you feel this? And the answer was always yes. What was going on? How were some people getting crazy good results and we couldn't get a single dermatome anesthetized? It was so frustrating that we decided to do what any rational regional anesthesiologist would do, test it ourselves. So I had my colleague do an ESP on me. T7 level, came down, hit the TP right on top as described, and injected 30 mils of 1.5% mepivacaine. The pattern of injection looked great. We got side-to-side spread. Whew, excellent. 20 minutes later, we found this. Nothing on the side of my chest, nothing in front. That was the day I should have got my back tattoo. But rather than celebrate that little patch, we called it quits on the ESP. And in fact, other groups had identical experiences with volunteers. Lots of little patches on the back, not so much on the front. Okay, so put us in the camp of ESP skeptics. But that's where things began to get interesting. The next year, in 2020, we did a cadaver study looking at the patterns of dye and contrast spread after ESP injection. And again, we brought the needle down, contacted bone, and did a test injection with saline to make sure we were getting longitudinal spread under the muscle. The spread looked great, and when we opened up the cadavers, we did find dye. But it was on the dorsal surface of the muscle. Wait, that wasn't quite right. The dye wasn't on the muscle, it was within the muscle, or more specifically, deep to the epimysium. Let me explain it a different way. Imagine the ES muscle is a sausage that runs up and down your back. Were you expecting a non-food analogy? Come on. When we dissected out the ES muscles, the dye quite clearly was just beneath the casing of the sausage and had traveled within the casing from the ventral side around the edge of the muscle meat itself, right around to the back. We all looked at each other and said, oh, we immediately realized that we had thought we were deep to the muscle when we injected, but in fact, we were still within the casing. It turns out that the epimysium of the ES muscle is often quite adherent to the transverse process, and by touching the top of the TP with our beveled block needle, we were injecting within the sausage. Oh, and by the way, there was zero staining of the nerve roots, paravertebral space, or the epidural space, in case you were wondering, which validated our clinical experience. So, did we throw the ESP in the trash? No, not so fast, because one of the docs at that dissection experiment was a spine surgeon who said, "What are you all talking about? This is perfect." And he was right. For posterior spine surgery, it's actually desirable to maintain the local anesthetic in a compartment that essentially just blocks the dorsal ramus of the intercostal nerve. By doing that, you anesthetize the skin, fascia, and periosteum of the dorsal part of the vertebra and surrounding structures without getting any ventral spread that might result in a motor block. We've done hundreds and hundreds of spine cases with ESP blocks and have only had one case where the neuromonitoring was impaired. And in that case, the overzealous anesthesiologist put the local in the lumbar paravertebral space. Great, so ESP is useful. But what about ESP for thoracic surgery, breast, and abdominal surgery? We still do it, but we've changed our technique. After reflecting on our sausage experience, we realized that hitting the top of the TP was not going to work in most cases. We needed to get the needle tip deep to the lining of the muscle. We began bringing our needle through the ES muscle and touching the side of the transverse process. By doing that, you, number one, ensured that you were truly deep to the muscle, and number two, had a backstop to keep you safe. Now, it probably works anywhere in this zone, but one of the benefits of the ESP has always been it's a see a bone, hit a bone block, which is easy to teach, learn, and perform. So now we have our trainees do that. Bring the needle through the muscle and touch the side of the TP. When you do this, you'll initially see spread within this submuscular space, but then it will spread longitudinally just like we always hoped for. And now the local can drizzle down into that paravertebral space. So far, so good. And the results? Bingo! This is the ESP block we had been promised. Overnight, our results got much better as patients began to describe lower pain scores and actual numbness in their chest walls and belly. Okay, so to sum it up so far, we have two variants of one block. For spine surgery, you want to hit the dorsal surface or the top and keep the local within that sausage compartment. For everything else, belly, breast, chest, you want to hit the side of the TP and keep the local deep. Excellent. Now let's see what this looks like. Here's our technique for thoracic and abdominal indications. I'll start with a linear probe quite lateral off the midline so I can visualize ribs, which look like rounded arches. You can see pleura sliding on either side. Now I'll slowly slide the probe medially until I get a shift from a rib to transverse process. The TP will be shallower, more square, and you typically lose that crisp pleura since it's diving deep. I'll pause here and slide lateral to medial and back several times to make sure I have a crisp image on the screen and in my mind of where the most lateral aspect of the TP is. Now I'll lock my image by resting my wrist and pinky on the patient's back and then bring a needle in plane from either direction. I'll pass through the ES muscle and hit the side of the TP. After negative aspiration, I'll inject a few mils to make sure I'm getting appropriate spread in that submuscular space. As we continue injecting, we can see the muscle lifting off the TPs on either side. Perfect, we're definitely in the right plane. We'll use 30 mils of local anesthetic per side. In the thorax, 30 mils will get you about 4 to 5 levels up and about 4 to 5 levels down, which makes it simple. For thoracic and breast surgery, I'll do the block at T5, which gets me from T1 to about T9 or 10. And for belly stuff, I'll do the block at T10, which gets me T6 to L1. For rib fractures, you can be more targeted and do the block wherever the ribs are broken. For spine surgery, the image will be slightly different depending on the level. For lumbar spine surgery, we'll use a curvilinear probe since the muscle is thicker here. Now, there are no ribs here to guide us, so what I'll do is place the probe, again, well off the midline in the mid-lumbar region, where I'm seeing just soft tissue. Hey there, kidney! Then I'll slide medial until the tips of the TPs make their first appearance. You'll know because you'll see these little arches casting long comet tail shadows. That's it. Now, bring a needle in from either direction and hit that TP on top. The injection sometimes looks a little less constrained here and will often get some intramuscular spread, but that's okay. What you're aiming for is to keep the local in the sausage to affect a dorsal ramus block. Don't go beyond or deep to the TP because that'll get you a lumbar plexus block. 30 mils on each side gets you about 2 or 3 levels up and about 2 or 3 down, so I'll frequently do my injection at about L3 or L4 for all lumbar indications. We don't do as many thoracic spine blocks, but we'll sometimes get a big scoliosis case in a teenager, and boy do they appreciate that. In those cases, we'll often break our dose up into 2 per side in order to cover that larger area, and the technique is the same as other spine blocks. Hit the top of the TP and go. We'll also do cervical ESPs for posterior cervical spine surgery, where we see a big difference in the incidence and intensity of neck spasm afterward. I have to admit, this area made me a little nervous. There's a lot of high-priced real estate there. When our surgeons first asked me to do this, I had visions of me causing bilateral brachial plexus blocks. So what I did was to inject 20 mils on each side at the C7 or T1 vertebra and allow the local to spread up to C2 or C3. That worked great, and that's still what I do. You can image the T1 transverse process the same way as lower thoracic ones, by sliding off the ribs. But it's a smaller vertebra, and so what I frequently do is to image it transversely. Here we're just off the midline and can see the bony TP clearly. I'll come in out of plane, hit the TP, and inject. You can see the muscle elevating here nicely. Before I share my ESP tips and tricks, here's a summary slide of dosing. How do we know which TP is which? Surface landmarks can be tricky, but hey, you have an ultrasound probe in your hand, right? Get an image of the ribs and then slide up until you don't see any more. That's rib 1, and then just count down. Easy peasy. You can do this block in multiple positions. Sitting, lateral, prone, they're all easy. I like prone for spine because you can do it after induction post-flip. We'll often do this at the end of a long thoracic or belly case, and for that I'll get the patient on his or her side before extubation, do both blocks, and then turn supine again. Catheters are relatively easy to place in the puddle of local, but make sure you're using an intermittent bolus of local rather than just a continuous infusion. This is a large potential space and it needs to be reinflated with local every so often. Our default regimen is 20 mL of 0.2% ropivacaine every 3 hours. And if we have bilateral catheters, we'll stagger the boluses by 90 minutes so they're not at the same time. The ESP block is a safe and straightforward technique, and if you land in the right space, it's very effective. I hope you can learn from our mistakes and also get the results you're looking for. Now, the ESP has been described as a stepping stone to what some would consider the gold standard of truncal blocks, the paravertebral. If you're ready to move on to the next level, check out this video.